Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to our study of the excellent path to enlightenment. I guess some of you were wondering whether I would actually show up today. Apologize about last time. I will, however, have to end it a bit early today because we're doing a retreat up here in the Blue Mountains, and we'll be concluding this morning, so I actually have to go from here and then up to conclude this retreat. So I'm probably gonna finish 20 minutes earlier than normal. So class, what's it called again? You know, your class is dismissed. You'll have a early a long break. So presently then we are looking at the section of Vajrasattva. So kindly develop the intention to apply this for the benefit of accomplishing enlightenment, with the intention to establish all sentient beings at the level of perfect Buddhahood. So, understanding how Vajrasattva is the very embodiment of the innate purity of all of what we could call samsara and nirvana, embodying the quality of the uncorrupted Buddha nature as it manifests in the mandalas of body, speech, and mind. Then we take Vajrasattva as our support for then regretfully exposing our confused actions, and with a vow to then no longer perpetuate these confused actions, we do the actual practice. In this case, then, we're doing the recitation of the Vajrasattva Mantra and the meditation, which has then the outer aspect is then, and then this practice then constitutes the fourth what we call strength. So there's a strength of the support of the witness to our practice of parting from our confused behavior. Then there's the exposing our confused behavior, the determination to not perpetuate this confusion, and then the actual application of it. And when we apply this practice, what we're engaging is then the Vajrayana vision of purity, where, having recited the 100-syllable mantra, then we supplicate Vajrasattva, and with a determination to re-establish our perfect discipline, our perfect Vajrayana discipline, we then visualize and see the entire universe in terms of its innate purity. So please remember, when we are visualizing, we're not imagining that our reality is something that it's not. The truth is, we don't actually perceive reality accurately. And so this sorry, there's just an issue with the, let me just check what's going on here. There's an issue with the sound. So I'm just gonna, hopefully the sound will come back. Anyway, the audio recording will be there. If you don't recognize, okay. Yeah, I'm being told that the sound is not there. Um, I'm just going to have to pause. Yeah, that's right. Okay, has been re-established. All right. Okay, it looks like we're back on track. Can you just confirm that you can hear me again? Okay, now, good. All right. So, so you haven't lost anything because I actually stopped at the point where I was notified there's no sound. So anyway, so what we do is we supplicate Vajrasattva and reaffirm our commitment to the Vajrayana discipline. Then from then on, we then visualize the world as a mandala. And this is visualizing the world as a mandala is seeing reality, or you could say approaching reality for what it is. So it's not as if we're imagining the world possessing a purity that it doesn't have. We're aware of sentient beings undergoing suffering and so forth, but the intrinsic nature of every sentient being is their Buddha nature, and the intrinsic nature of what we could call the objective reality are the purity of the elements. And so visualizing the world as a mandala is actually approaching the true nature of our reality, both in terms of ourselves and others. So while we might find it hard to visualize ourselves and certain people and the place we are as a mandala, what we're doing with such visualization is actually visualizing its intrinsic nature. You're aligning ourselves with the intrinsic nature, and hence with the inner practice of Vajrasattva, then visualizing this mandala, the world as a mandala Vajrasattva. This is reconnecting with the Vajrayana discipline. And so we can also say, and in the context of the Longchen Yingtig, then in Khyentse Wangpo's short commentary in the Longchen Yingtig Ngondro, we also at the end refer to the dissolution of the visualization as the secret purification. You could say the ultimate purification, seeing beyond the constructs of the confused mind and its confused projections of engagement in samsara. So that non-duality, free from any concepts whatsoever, is the ultimate purification. So presently then we have recited Vajrasattva Mantra, and then as we do that, we consider that we're flushed through. Our being is flushed through with the nectar of Vajrasattva and purifying all our negative actions, and also how do you say, freeing in our debt with all those to whom we have karmic debts through everything that is expelled from our body going into the mouth of Yama. So this is where we've come to in the practice then, in the practice of Vajrasattva. Okay, good. So Khyentse Rinpoche writes, after this, conclude by reciting the supplication to Vajrasattva. Protector, I have been ignorant and foolish, and I have broken and spoiled the Samaya. Guru and Protector, be my refuge. Supreme Vajra holder, embodiment of great compassion. Supreme among beings, I take refuge in you. I repent and confess all deteriorations, breaches, faults and downfalls of the root and branch Samayas related to body, speech, and mind. Cleanse and purify all negative actions, obscurations, and habitual tendencies. Now, when we say we have broken and spoiled the Samaya, Samaya is the Vajrayana discipline. In Tibetan, it's Tamsik, which means a sacred word, a word of honor. We in principle even though we might not have received empowerment, the premise of Vajrayana discipline is that either we have received some Vajrayana Samaya, or this is what the Vajrayana Samaya will be about, or the Vajrayana discipline will be based on this empowerment. And that's where we we expose then our weakening of this relationship to the empowerment we have received. Receiving the empowerment is an entrance gate into the Vajrayana, and the Samaya is the practice, the discipline, which really consists of the one aspect, the teacher empowers us to recognize that we have Buddha nature, and the discipline then is to sustain a vision of this Buddha nature through our pure perception of ourselves, our world, and others. And so that is given in the context of trust, that the teacher trusts us, sees us capable of undertaking such a discipline, and also that we're intelligent enough, that we've been processed through the path, that there's sufficient wisdom for us to recognize this. And then sustaining this is the path, the discipline. And of course, being, if you are anything like me, then I get annoyed. I get annoyed with others, and I see others impurely, and I get annoyed with myself, and I also fail to see the purity of phenomena in general. So while the view is high, and that's completely fine that we have a high view, but we should also recognize humbly that we might fall short of it. But that doesn't mean that we should give up, but we acknowledge that we've weakened the Samaya. Spoiled is translated as sometimes weakened. But that's where we invoke then the teacher to be our place of safety. We're not lost because we're not capable of upholding the discipline. And we supplicate, and we never give up. The thing about the Dharma is we never give up. The condition of samsara is removable. So if we don't succeed, we try again and again and again. What do we visualize is in the four direction when what do we visualize is in the four directions when Vajrasattva is above our heads? There's no particular reference. In some practices of Vajrasattva, it's mentioned see all beings as having Vajrasattva on the crown of their head, and others we don't particularly mention that, and we just generally focus on Vajrasattva on the crown of our head. There's no reference to the four directions at that point. Now there will be. Now we're coming to the inner Vajrasattva practice. So supplicating in this way, then we confess and expose and so forth, and basically the practice is we part ways from our imperfect discipline. And then at the end of the supplication, then Khyentse Rinpoche writes, as soon as you have said this, think that not only your own defilements and obscurations, but also those of all beings are completely purified. Imagine that Vajrasattva is pleased by your supplication. He smiles and says, noble child, you are now purified of all obscurations. After that say, and this is in the ngöndro then, Vajrasattva melts into light and dissolves into me. So in some ngöndros there's a more elaborate way of doing this where you chant also what Vajrasattva says, but here just very briefly, it just says, having completed the recitation of the 100-syllable mantra, made the supplication, we then chant Vajrasattva melts into light and dissolves into me. The moment Vajrasattva dissolves into you, you no longer have your ordinary form, but become Vajrasattva united with his wisdom consort. In your heart center is a white moon disk, upon which there is a blue letter Hum, surrounded by the 6-syllable mantra, Om Vajrasattva Hum, or sometimes we say Om Vajrasattva Hum in Tibetan, but then if you look at the Sanskrit, then it says Om Vajrasattva Hum. So there's different ways of pronouncing it. All are equally correct. Even though Tibetans will always insist that you chant the Sanskrit, they themselves recommend chanting Sanskrit, but they at the same time stick with chanting the Tibetan pronunciation. So far, maybe there's some young Tibetans who are now trying to do the Sanskrit number. So is that the Vajrasattva Mandala? Just what is above our heads? No, that's just Vajrasattva. So Vajrasattva is just above the crown of our head. Just what is. Do we have a specific Vajrasattva Tanka from Ngondro? Well, the different ngöndros in Ngondro, they are slightly different, but in general they all look pretty much like the Vajrasattva we have here. So I can put this up in the, if it's not already up there. But here you see a lineage like the lineage masters, but that's, and also Ekajati. But apart from that, then this is a universal form of Vajrasattva. In the Khyentse Nyingtik, then it's a red Vajrasattva visualized below the navel. But we're not particularly then going into that here in this context. Okay, somebody says somehow for many so-called religions, they all take the confession as part of their rituals. How we view our way of confession? Well, the Tibetan is shakpa, which means parting, and the way that we view our neurosis and the way that our neurotic actions have driven us into patterns of neurotic action, what we called kleshas and karma, that's something that is not innate to who we are. So we don't operate with the notion of original sin. We rather see these actions as just coming from a place of ignorance, and we needn't actually pursue these. So from that point of view, we simply decide to not pursue these practices. We not pursue these neurotic negative actions. So negative actions we can understand in terms of not harming, not causing trouble to others, and also parting ways with negative tendencies within ourselves. So this is something that we're under no obligation to carry with us. So the Tibetan is shakpa, which means to just part. We can leave it. So if you ask, how do we view our way of confession? I would quote Shigam Trungpa is, we stop doing what it is that's negative and we get on with our life. We part ways with that and we reestablish our, you could say, innate purity. So how are visualizing the universe as a mandala? We haven't gotten there yet. We will come to visualizing the universe as a mandala. Now, there's two parts to the Vajrasattva. There's the outer and the inner. We've just done the outer so far. So having done then this practice of the 100-syllable mantra, made the supplication to Vajrasattva, then Vajrasattva dissolves into us, and we then visualize in our heart center the syllable Hum, and surrounding that then in the various directions in the heart center on the moon, the white moon disk, then we have the various syllables. We have in the east, which means in front of us in the heart center, in the so when we're looking forward, we always say that's the eastern direction. If there's a mandala, the direction we're facing is east. Also, those who have done Shambhala training, great eastern sun, that's the dawn of enlightenment, so to speak. And so there we have the syllable Om. To the right, to the south, then we have the syllables Vajra or Vajra. Behind, to the west, is the syllable Sa. And on your left, to the north, is the green syllable Ta or Twa. So this is how it is in our heart center, on the moon disk. The syllable Hung in the middle, and then Om, Benzara, Sa, To. So, and with Hung in the middle. From the Hung and from the syllables of the mantra, boundless rays of multicolored light emanate to the Buddha fields of the 10 directions, making infinite offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So this we should just sort of dwell on. This is something that's very, very beautiful to do, and we can make countless offerings. Everything that's beautiful, that everything that we can imagine that is beautiful and infinite in its extent, however much there is, then however much we can imagine, in infinitude of offerings. Think that the Buddhas, having accepted your offerings, send back their blessings, all their wisdom, loving kindness, and power in the form of rays of light which dissolve into you. Like a lotus bud opening, as the rays of the sun touch it, Vajrasattva becomes even more brilliant and perfect. Of course, it's not as if the Buddhas are pleased with our offering, like we give something to somebody and they're like, oh, thank you. There's not such a duality, but from our conventional point of view, such dynamic exists in our conventional realm. And so to use that duality as a vehicle, we have this visualization of offering to the Buddhas, considering them, being pleased, and then blessing us with light. And dissolving into us, we consider Vajrasattva becomes even more brilliant and perfect. Then visualize that from your whole body and from the syllables of the mantra, boundless rays of light emanate, filling the whole universe around you. The universe is no longer an ordinary impure place, but the perfect Buddha field of Vajrasattva, the Buddha field of pure joy. So we consider that this light purifies our perception and we begin to see reality as it is. The sentient beings in it are no longer ordinary, no longer the way that we habitually project and conceive of them. All the males have the form and nature of Vajrasattva, because all beings innately possess Buddha nature and innately are Vajrasattva. And all the females, the form and nature of Vajratirpa, his wisdom consort. So all the males and females seen according to their innate nature, not their karmic. Of course, their karmic nature will be all sorts of shapes and sizes, and we're all very original in our own particular karmic phenomena. But innately, all of reality is the Buddha field of Vajrasattva. To the east, all beings become white Vajrasattvas and Vajratirpas of the Vajra or diamond family. To the south, they become yellow Vajrasattvas and Vajratirpas of the Ratna or jewel family. To the west, they become red Vajrasattvas and Vajratirpas of the Padma or lotus family. To the north, they become green Vajrasattvas and Vajratirpas of the Kama or action family. And in the center, they become blue Vajrasattvas and Vajratirpas of the Tathagata or Buddha family. So this is, we're visualizing ourselves as Vajrasattva, white and so forth, but without any kind of dualistic worry about the way that we're visualizing this and so forth. Then we quite simply consider that all the various kinds of sentient beings, and we can sometimes see Buddha, the wisdom of the Buddha in terms of these 5 families, are all perfect. So all these beings are continually reciting the 100-syllable mantra, the sound of which fills the whole of space. In this way, appearances, sound, and thoughts are no longer ordinary, but appear as the sheer display of wisdom. The external world is a Buddha field of the beings, and the beings in it are manifestations of Vajrasattva and Vajratirpa. All sounds are the resonance of the mantra, and all thoughts are the spontaneous display of bliss emptiness. Okay? The positions of Ta and Vajra are opposite from what they appear in the words of my perfect teacher. Could you please explain the difference? Let me just check. That's right. Well, that's odd. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to say what we're doing here is more correct. We're gonna have to talk to those people. There must be a reason. But what you have here is definitely consistent with how we understand mandala principle in general. The east down here, the south here, the west here, and the north here. It's true in the words of my perfect teacher, they have Ta over here and Vajra over here. So for the time being, I'll take responsibility for this. Stick with what it says in the present text that we're studying, and I'll try to see. I might. I cannot. I think I know some of the translators, so I can ask it. But it's there is probably some explanation. I just can't understand what the explanation would be. You know, it's like the Padmakara people don't normally make mistakes. Yeah, it's just a bit odd. Well, look, sometimes and this is getting a little bit confusing, but sometimes you arrange the mantra counterclockwise because then when it turns, it goes clockwise. So that might be because that's the only explanation. But for the time being, there's no mentioning of any turning. So I would say right now, stick with what we have here. Yeah, because the mantras are not moving anywhere. These syllables are in Sanskrit. Yeah, whenever we recite mantra, these generally are in Sanskrit, but you will again and again hear lineage teachers say that it's fine to visualize in our own language. So because we have the particular karmic disposition to be born in a place, some of us where we use Roman letters, then it's okay to visualize the syllables in that particular language that we're using. Yeah. Now recite the 6-syllable mantra as many times as you can. Well, when we say as many times as you can, that actually does apply in the case of the ngöndro. You would recite 300 hours of the 100-syllable mantra, and you would recite 60 hours of the 6-syllable mantra. But otherwise, very often we would do the number of mantras 100,000 per syllable, meaning 600,000, plus an additional 100,000 as amendment to amend the imperfect recitations we might have done. Okay. So whether you want to, I would suggest to do it. So first, for a period, you do the 100-syllable mantra, and at the end, you just maybe do one mala of the 6-syllable mantra. And then, when you've completed the 300 hours, then you do a period of 60 hours with chanting primarily the 6-syllable mantra. You would do it at the beginning of the session. You've just recite the 100-syllable mantra, maybe 7 or 21 times, and then you would recite the 6-syllable mantra. At the end of the session, the whole outer universe, together with the beings in it, starting from the periphery, dissolve into you as Vajrasattva and consort. No, 6. Yes, that's right. 600,000 is 100 per syllable, but we add an additional 100,000 as amendment, so it becomes 700,000. This applies in general to mantras, that we recite 100,000 for each syllable, and then we add an additional 100,000 as amendment. So the universe dissolves into you as so the whole universe dissolves into you as Vajrasattva and consort, as light. So all of the beings dissolve, all of the universe, the beings dissolve into us. Then the consort dissolves into Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva melts into light and dissolves into the mantra in your heart center. The syllables of the mantra dissolve into each other one by one, and then into the central letter Hum. So there, beginning from the letter Ta, dissolves into the Sa, into the Vajra, into the Om, and then into the Hum. Then Hum, or Hum, starting from the bottom, dissolves upward, melting into light until finally it vanishes like a rainbow in the sky, leaving only the vast expanse of luminous emptiness. At that time, there's no reference, but at the same time, we know, right? There's no reference points in terms of anything to visualize or anything in particular, but at the same time, our mind is perfectly clear. It knows. And that knowing quality is what we then refer to as luminosity. Sit for a while, simply remaining in that state of utter simplicity, free from all concepts and clinging. It is the innate wisdom, the immutable mode of being, the true face of the absolute Vajrasattva. So this is the real Vajrasattva, if you like. And this is then the absolute way of confession in settling into simplicity. There's nothing that we're holding on to particularly. We're not visualizing anything. We're just remaining in simplicity. So this is not easy to do. And usually we would say in that moment of dissolution, keep it very simple, but there will start to be thoughts. There'll be thoughts like, wonder what this simplicity actually is, or is this simplicity, and so forth, and all these kind of things. That's why in some way it's very helpful to have a reference point until we have some skill in just remaining in simplicity. But this is the ultimate kind of Vajrasattva that's free from the dualistic notions of samsara. And so we talk about this as the innate ground that is inseparable from our Buddha nature. So it's called the innate wisdom, the immutable mode of being. The immutable mode of being is also one way of saying Vajrasattva. So this is the actual true Vajrasattva, the true face of the absolute Vajrasattva. Yeah. After a while, when you start to come out of this meditation and thoughts again arise in your mind, you should think that all outer appearances are a Buddha field. All beings are deities, all sounds are mantra, and all thoughts are wisdom. So we will naturally have this notion of the others. There will be the notion, the thought of others, things that we need to do. The whole familiar experience of being in the life that we are in. But at that time, we keep this presence of Vajrasattva. And just thinking Vajrasattva, we keep this vision, this discipline of purity in terms of our body, our speech, and our mind. We keep this through the notion or the recognition that innately all the outer world innately is a Buddha field. Innately all beings are deities. All the sounds are mantras and all thoughts are wisdom. That's because we have the habit to objectify and think in terms of the world and the people in there, which is fine, and we need to do that when we function in ordinary life. But this is where we then can apply. We can use this dualistic habit as a method we can use this as skillful means on the path. And that's where this visualization of deity, mantra, and wisdom is something that aligns us with enlightenment. As the mirror of your mind has been wiped clean through the practice of Vajrasattva, all phenomena are clearly reflected in it according to their true nature. So at this point, we see reality according to their true nature. When we're visualizing, we're seeing reality according to its true nature. We're seeing that phenomena, they appear, yet they have no reality. So when we recognize that this purity, this emptiness nature pervades all phenomena, then we're no longer deluded. And at that point, then the way that we're seeing things and the way that things actually are united. So this is a way that we sustain this vision of relative truth according to what we call the higher way, or the superior vision of relative truth. In order to make your purification last, you now need to apply the fourth power, the power of resolution. So sometimes we talk about this at an earlier stage, but also then we can apply it here. This is very, very skillful from Khyentse Rinpoche's point of his explanation is particularly skillful. This means to have the unwavering determination that even if it costs you your life, you will not revert to negative action, which, as we know, causes all our suffering and keeps us circling in samsara. So due to our confused actions, we've done dreadful things, and we've been so confused as to what to actually do and avoid, that now that we've encountered the Dharma, now that we know the way forward, we're not going to revert back into this counterproductive way of being stuck in samsara. Conclude by wholeheartedly dedicating the merit of this practice for the sake of all beings, saying, by this merit, may all sentient beings swiftly achieve the level of Vajrasattva himself, and offering all the benefits from this practice completely to all beings. You should not think that the merit is divided up among them, but that each and every being receives all the merit in its entirety. And that's why also when we dedicate, for example, to dear and beloved ones that we're worried for when they're sick, it's not as if we say, okay, today my Aunt Betsy is ill, and so I'm going to give her 80% of my merit, and then all sentient beings, they can share the remaining 20. We don't need to have that kind of thought. Of course, keeping our aunt in our mind is very helpful, and we should do that, and so forth, but we shouldn't think that that means that there's only a little bit of merit left for all the other sentient beings. Yeah, we don't need to have that how do you say, substantialist or materialistic view. Now that's what we do because we are dualistic persons. Now we also know that when we give something, then we very often have strings attached. And we might even think, gosh, I'm a nice person, I'm giving this to that person. So our ego could potentially grow. And also we have expectations. We want something back. I helped you there, you owe me. I dedicated my merit to you, now you owe me, and so forth. And that's where that clearly would not be how the sage dedicates. We wouldn't want to end up like that, being very, self-righteous and entitled persons on the basis of our dedicating the merit. So Khyentse Rinpoche says, when dedicating the merit, however, you should remain free of clinging and concepts, mindful that in absolute truth there is no one who dedicates, no object of dedication, and no act of dedicating. So in the absolute, these relative constructs of subject and object, self and other, the practice and so forth, all these constructs in the absolute, they're nothing more than like a rainbow. There's nothing substantial about them. And so we should recognize this nature. And from that point of view, then you can say the beauty of the sage is that the bodhisattva gives and gives, but it's never ever tiresome. The bodhisattva never gets tired because there's no notion of giving anything. It's just organic. The lack of self means that there's no holding back in any way. The 100-syllable mantra has to be recited 100,000 times, and the 6-syllable mantra 600,000 times. Okay, that's obviously not what I said before, but sometimes these things are explained slightly differently. Anyway, okay, in that case, now you have Khyentse Rinpoche's word for it, so 600,000 apparently does it. Good. Until you have completed the number of recitations of the 100 syllable mantra, spend most of each practice session on that, and then recite the shorter mantra a few times at the end. Once you have completed the 100,000 recitations of the 100 syllable mantra, recite it just a few times at the beginning of each session, and then concentrate on the recitation of the shorter mantra. So at least I got that right. We should remember that meditating on Vajrasattva is the same as meditating upon all the Buddhas. To achieve the realization of Vajrasattva is to achieve the qualities of all the Buddhas. Do we use the... Let's see here. Do we use the process of dissolution into post-meditation as a means of reinforcing the illusory nature of all? This is not post-meditation. The dissolution is very much part of the meditation. So with all Vajrayana practice, even though there is right from the start the wisdom aspect of recognizing emptiness in all appearances, then to eliminate what we call the extreme of holding on to it as absolute, then we dissolve the deity at the end. But that's still just that's still meditation. And then we then reappear as the deity, and then we can say we can take that deity and the visualization of the world as a mandala. We can take that into, after we have dedicated and so forth, then we can sustain that visualization in the post meditation. But the way that we also visualize everything in terms of deity, mantra, and wisdom, that is, as you say, then also a way of, integrating the view of the illusory nature of all. So we can see, whenever we have these instructions, see everything as a dream. We can also see this dream as the dream mandala of the deity. In one group studying here, I just heard someone use the 100 syllable mantra as a kind of key to terminate the chaos by chanting the mantra by heart whenever she is facing with. Is the right attitude or understanding of it? That's fine. That's completely fine. Of course, we could say in this, now that we're studying Vajrasattva, then there's a very particular technique in the Vajrasattva practice. But if you wish to use a mantra, and any mantra really anywhere, that's fine. Just like we say Vajrasattva, we're just reading Vajrasattva possesses the qualities of all the Buddhas, then we could very well chant Vajrasattva mantra for any purpose. It is true Vajrasattva is associated with purification, but at the same time, we all have different karmic connections and so forth with various deities, and some people might just take one mantra and use that for everything. So that's completely fine. Moreover, the mantra of Vajrasattva, the 100 syllable mantra, is the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities in the form of sound. It embodies all the wisdom and power of Vajrasattva himself. If you recite the 100 syllable mantra 21 times every day, concentrating completely on the visualization of the nectar pouring down and the purification, no breaches of vow or samaya, and no obscurations will be left unpurified. So we very often say that as Mahayana practitioners, at the end of the day, we check, how was my bodhicitta, how was my practice? And that's where we can then apply then the practice of purification with chanting the 100-syllable mantra 21 times. Okay, so I'm going to have to end here. If you recite the 100-syllable, if you recite the 100-syllable mantra 100 times without distraction, you can even purify a crime without immediate retribution quite easily. If you do this practice, all the Buddhas will think of you as their own child, and everything that obstructs your spiritual practice and ultimate realization will be dispelled. So Vajrasattva is a very important practice, and this is just very briefly on its practice. So apart from having some confusion around the words of my perfect teacher and the instructions in there, I would say that the teaching in the words of my perfect teacher on the Vajrasattva practice, we can look to that as being a place where it's explained more in depth. All right. Thank you very much, and shall see you again next week. Through this virtue may all beings throughout existence awaken together without a single being left behind. In the pure realm of the luminous essence, the ground of the great perfection, may they remain inseparable from the kayas and wisdom. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we are born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together. Oh yes, Jakob.